What's up, guys? Welcome to Whiskey. My name's Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. With that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're looking at the Balblair 15-year-old. Stick around. So today we're looking at a Balblair, and I think this is the first Balblair I've ever looked at on the channel. And usually the reason I haven't looked at something might be because it's a more obscure brand, or maybe it's a brand that I'm not necessarily a big fan of. But that's not the case here. I actually really do like Balblair. I've been a fan of theirs for some time. They're probably best known for their vintage line, although they did away with vintages back in 2019, and unsurprisingly, a lot of people were not very happy about that. These guys were one of the only brands to do the vintage thing. Even when it came to their core range, all of their whiskeys were put out as vintages, and that was kind of interesting and refreshing. So yeah, of course, people did get mad when they decided to switch over to standard age statements, and of course that happens a lot in whiskey. You know, when we find something we like, we don't want to lose it, we don't want it to change, so when we find out that the whiskeys that we love are no longer going to be available to us, yeah, we get upset. It happens to me, it happens to all of us, it's normal. You know, I got upset myself when I learned the Balblair was revamping their line. I threw my dinner plate across the room. I flipped a table. I started shouting obscenities. I might have even started a fire or two. You know, just little ones. I needed to vent. And long story short, I am no longer welcome back at that particular McDonald's establishment. Lawsuits pending. So yeah, personally, I do miss the vintage thing. I think it set them apart. And thing is, all whiskey is batch whiskey, whether they say it or not. So having that extra information about when it was distilled, when it was bottled, that was just a nice bonus for us whiskey nerds. And beyond all that, their vintage line was a good line of whiskey. They were probably best known for their entry-level stuff, which was usually bourbon matured. It was usually about 10 years old. These were whiskeys that were bright, they were fresh, they were clean, and most importantly, they were affordable. And I'm sure most of you can imagine what happened to the prices after they revamped the line. Okay, so I am exaggerating a little bit there. It doesn't have like a super premium price tag now, but the prices definitely did go up after the revamp. That's something we can discuss a little bit later. What else? Obviously, 15 years old. This one's been matured in bourbon barrels and then finished in first fill sherry barrels. And this one has been picking up a fair amount of traction lately. A lot of people do seem to like it. I was very curious to try it myself. It's a brand that I like. This is the first bottle from the new line that I've picked up. They also have a 12-year-old, they have an 18-year-old. I've heard mixed things about those two, so maybe you guys, if you want to see reviews on those, let me know down below in the comments. If you want to share your thoughts on them, again, put them down below. I'm still mulling over those ones. In the meantime, we've got our 15-year-old here, which is the nice middle child age statement. It's sherried, it's a Balblair, so it all looks good on paper. Let's find out, let's jump into the review. Meanwhile, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So we've got some fantastic specs on this one. It is 46%, it is non-chill filtered, and our color is natural, as it should be. So we have our nice natural color there. I gotta say, I do like the Balblair look. I've always liked the Balblair look. I like their old labels as well. They look like this. But I also like this one. I think it's a nice mix of modern and vintage. I think it's distinctive. It stands out on the shelf. 4.5 out of 5 for presentation. It has natural color and non-chill filtered front and center on the label. It says that it's matured initially in American Oak X bourbon casks, followed by the rich influence of first fill Spanish oak butts. Butts. So there's absolutely no fluff beyond the basic info. It's the info we need to know, and the look is nice, so well done. I did not add water. Let's try our nose. So sherry. Big sherry, but it's not a sherry bomb. It is more a strain than that. Okay, so this is a finished whiskey, but it's not a modern finished whiskey. It's not very superficial. We've got more depth than that. And it's also got a nice sort of old school charm here. Oak, mustiness, red fruits, molasses, heather. We have toffee, we have orange peel, there's raisins, there's dates, there's Christmas pudding. So it's just a classic old school sherry nose, but a nice one. Now our palate. Decent texture here, good intensity, hits with spices up front. So big nutmeg, we got some cinnamon in here, we got some white pepper. Then we move into those red fruits. We've got apple skin, we've got mulled wine, we've got berries. We've also got stewed fruits, raisins, dates, brown sugar, and we have an herbal note that kicks in a little bit later. We've got some oak spice here. This would be a nice one for Christmas. And now our finish. Okay, things get more bitter here. They get more herbal, almost vegetal even. Brussels sprouts, which is interesting. We also have lingering red fruits. We have apple skin, spices, pepper, medium finish. Okay, so this is pretty good stuff. It's got a nice old school charm to it. Also, as a finished whiskey, it doesn't taste like a modern, overly sweet, superficial sherry finish. The flavors are much more deeply integrated. It doesn't taste like a top layer, if that makes sense. In fact, the whiskey I'd compare this to is not a finished whiskey. I would say this has similarities to Glenfarclas 15. Both this and Glenfarclas 15 have a bit of that old school ruggedness to their sherry. Neither of them taste like technically perfect or too engineered. They have a bit more rougher edges than that. And that's not to say these whiskeys are not accessible. They absolutely are. They're just not overly pretty or generic. And of course, that's a good thing. And I like some of those bitter, herbal, vegetal notes that counterbalance the sweetness. And I'm not a fan of Brussels sprouts. And if you're not a fan of Brussels sprouts either, don't worry. It doesn't ruin the whiskey. But we do have a very vegetal, sort of herbal, bitter note in here that's Brussels sprouty. But it's subtle. It's not overpowering. My friend doesn't even pick up on it, so don't worry too much there. I mentioned earlier how much I like the integration of the finish. This doesn't feel superficial. It's really well worked into the base flavors, which is fantastic. I like the spiciness in here. All of our flavors have some weight to them. That's thanks to our 46%. That's thanks to our natural presentation. So there's a lot of things that work here. And one thing I want to say about Balblair, they're probably best known for their bourbon matured releases, especially their entry-level lines back when they were doing vintages. These were bright, they were fresh, they were clean, and generally very good whiskeys. But Balblair also has a long history of putting out quality sherried whiskey. I've had some amazing sherried expressions from them, and I mean top-class stuff. In fact, some of their vintage sherried whiskeys were just full-on sherried bombs. They had like depth and complexity that could rival any of the heavy hitters, be it Glendronach or Balblair, whatever. And beyond just being delicious, they also had a meaty, savory element, reminiscent of what you'll find in a Mortlach or a Benrinnes. So Balblair knows sherry, and they do it very well. Now this one is not those whiskeys. This is not a sherry bomb. And if I'm being honest, it's not a whiskey that's likely to blow your socks off. It's not a fireworks whiskey, but it is charming, restrained, balanced, complex, competent, with a nice old school vibe. So I do think this is one of your better 15-year-old sherried options out there. It gets a solid score for me. I'm going to give this one an 87. Ralphie also gave it an 87, so I'm in good company. It's a lovely whiskey. And what's nice is that I've got this one right here. This is another Balblair, but this is back from their vintage days. Distilled in 1999, bottled in 2014, so it's 15 years old. It's also a sherried finish. Now this one isn't open, but I've had it before. And I'm happy to report that this one, going off of memory, is about as good as this one. I don't think much was lost between here and here, which of course is good news. Now keep in mind, I'm talking about these two 15-year-olds specifically. I can't speak broadly about the entire line. I don't know about the 12 or the 18-year-old, how they compare. But yeah, as far as the 15 is concerned, the new one still works, still great whiskey. So if you're a fan of Balblair, if you like your old school sherry, if you're a fan of Glenfarclas 15, if you like your sherry to have a little bit of an edge to it while still being broadly accessible, I think you'll get a lot out of this one. It's good. So I think we've got pretty good value here within a 2022 context. I kept bringing up Glenfarclas 15 throughout this review. That's a cheaper whiskey. I happen to like it a little bit more, so I would say that's better value than this. But if we're sticking to Balblair, even if we compare Balblair to Balblair, if we go back in time and look at the vintage stuff, of course, we're going backwards, so we're getting better bang for buck from the older stuff. But where we're at today, if we compare this to modern sherried 15-year-old whiskeys that are out there, yeah, it's still pretty good value. It's cheaper than most. It's better than most. So if it sounds interesting, I have no problem with the price. I would encourage you to pick it up. All right, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, please consider becoming a patron. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. That is always appreciated. Of course, I do want to hear from you. Have you tried Balblair 15? How would you compare it to some of their older vintage stuff? What are your thoughts on the 12 and the 18? Should I explore the line further? Finally, down below in the comments, you can also let me know what you want to see me review next. I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.